Hello, welcome back to my channel. This video, I thought I would do a ranking of my horror palettes. Now, a lot of the ones that come to mind, first off, are like my Glam Light. I have the Kylie Nightmare on Elm Street, and then Dark and Glam. But I have a few others, Melt, Black Moon. I have one that I pulled out from Give Me Glow. So there's an assortment here. So I'm going to rank them. And I figured I wanted to show them to you anyway. So we'll do this in a ranking style. I don't know how many I have exactly. I'll count them. But yeah, I'm going to rank them. Might do a couple of swatches of each one. Maybe I'll swatch my favorite shade out of each palette. Maybe we'll do that because otherwise this video is going to be really long. But yeah, if you want to see all of my horror themed palettes, then stick around. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're new, welcome. This doesn't include some of my Halloween palettes because, well, they are like spooky. I had to kind of draw the line somewhere. And since this is my video and I can put in what I want, the Hocus Pocus palettes are not in here. That was kind of toeing the line of like horror themed. Technically they're Halloween movies, but like Nightmare Before Christmas I'm including only because it's part of my background aesthetic and it's my video. Technically Beetlejuice is not, I don't think, technically a horror movie. It's kind of toeing the line, but again, it's my video. I can put in what I want. So there are some things in here that aren't necessarily horror. And then, like I said, I didn't put all of my Halloween palettes because there would be a lot. So other than that, thank you for being here and let's jump into the video. I have 18, I did count, but I'm going to put a couple of them together in the same spot. They're from the same brand and I like them equally. So there won't be like an 18 number count, if that makes sense. There's only one that I think is bad, and the whole palette isn't bad. It's one shade. If you have watched my videos and you know which one it is, it's the Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, I only used this once, but the experience I had was so off-putting, I have never been inclined to go back and try the rest of the palette. And the shade that I had the worst time with is the green in here. It was so dry. Now, granted, I did get this like a year after it launched, but I have palettes, like I have the original electric palette from Urban Decay, and that's like a 10-year-old palette. And I used it within the last year because I'm crazy, but that worked perfectly fine. Now, are the shades as pigmented as they were 10 years ago? Probably not, but nowhere near as dry and patchy as this green was. So a year is not that old, in my opinion. Now, the rest of them did not feel as dry. Maybe the burgundy one did a little bit, but the lighter neutrals felt fine when I swatched them, but it hasn't made me want to go back to it. So at the bottom, and I keep it strictly for the packaging because I like horror, if you couldn't tell. So that's the bottom. I'm not going to swatch anything out of that. We'll move on. So let's see. Technically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That was technically 12 if we were counting. So that was at the bottom. Next is the Haunted Pumpkin from Give Me Glow. And this is strictly Color Story. I like Give Me Glow's formula. It's very pigmented. It's not necessarily the most beginner friendly. They are kind of rebranding and they're coming out with palettes with smaller pans. So I think their price point is going to come down, which I think is nice because their palettes were a little bit more on the expensive side, but it's just Color Story. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. I was on the fence when I bought this. I only had one Give Me Glow palette at the time and I wanted another one. I like the oranges and browns. Turquoise is growing on me, but orange and turquoise together is not necessarily my favorite color combination, if that makes sense. But I do like kind of splitting that and using them separately. Some of it is psychosomatic. I have a hard time looking at the two together, but formula is nice. There's nothing wrong with it. If I was going to swatch, the shade that I have used the most out of here is Urban Legend. It's the gold right here on the end. It's really pretty, very shiny. not super glittery. I don't believe, very metallic, I guess would be the word. I don't think, at least the Give Me Glow palettes that I have 3, are much more metallic, and there's not like micro shimmer like there is in some other brands. So that would be, what did we say, 12? Next, I'm not going to keep track because I'm already lost and we're only 2 palettes in. Would be the Ghostface, and this is strictly Color Story because the Scream franchise is one of my favorite franchises. Do I think we needed 6? Not necessarily. I do like the new ones. I don't have a problem with them. I do think they add and not take away. Some of the Friday the 13th movies, one could argue, didn't need to be there. Same thing with like the Halloweens, but I'm one of those, like, we don't need 50 sequels, so we're getting into that territory with this franchise where I think we're getting too many, but that's neither here nor there. But this is just based on Color Story. This is a grayscale palette. There is a black in here. I think this palette needed a white. We do have a light gray, which Glamlite does not tend to do a lot of lighter shades. They tend to be very mid to deep. And so I think this palette could have definitely benefited from a white. Some of the other palettes that she did, I think, didn't have whites in them. So I think that may be why she didn't put a white in here, but it's a great palette. This isn't a Color Story that I'm going to reach for a whole lot. Next we have Dark and Glam, and I lumped all of these together because I don't necessarily like any of these over the other. I think they're all good. They have different color stories. So for 12, 11, 10, 9, this would be 8. These would come in at number 8. Trying to rank, I was like, I'm just going to lump some of them together. So I have the Conjuring Universe palette that they came out with more recently. This has some really pretty like duochromes in it, and then their matte formula is decent. You've got some more satiny shades. There's 1, 2, 3, and those work fine too. They give you a nice, like a decent metallic on the lid, but my favorite one in here is the Bride. It's very soft, so I'm going to try and not go in. It's a toppery shade, so you can definitely put it over the more satiny ones to give it a better effect, but it's very pretty on its own, and it can be used as a highlighter on your face. So it's one of those very wet looking shades. And there's no pressed glitter in this palette. Some of their palettes do have pressed glitters. That one doesn't have one. And then we have the Haunted Mask, the Goosebumps. There is a pressed glitter in here, this blue one down at the bottom, and then you've got these neon shades, and then the rest of these are like duochromes. My favorite one in here is the Haunted Mask shade. It's very, very pretty. And again, it's kind of a more toppery. This one's got a little bit more of a colored base to it, but can be used on top of any of the mattes. And then my first palette from them was Creepshow. This came in a mystery bundle. And it looks like this. And there is a pressed glitter in here. And then my favorite shade, this one's a little shinier. There is a black in here that's a little more of like a satin shade, but Model Kid is pretty. I'll put it over here off to the side. Again, it's nothing crazy, but it's a decent shimmer. Okay, so I'm already confused. So 12, 11, 10, 9, let's see, 8. We have the Urban Myth from Black Moon. I have one of their all matte palettes, the one that's got like the harvesty kind of colors. I guess that's the only other one because the palette, they're like Half Moon. The other one's an all shimmer palette. The all matte palette I have. And then this one I like because it's got the mattes and the shimmers. I think my favorite shade in here is Boogeyman. I like Bermuda Triangle too. There's some pretty shades in here, but we'll swatch Boogeyman. It's been a long time since I've used this palette. Again, there's nothing crazy, but it's pretty. I've gotten some good looks out of this. I think people were on the fence with this. People either liked this palette or they hated it. Their formula is a little bit different. I've never had any trouble with it, and I do like that I have that other all matte palette that I can pair it with. I like if I have more than one palette from a brand using them together because you hope that their formulas between the two play well together. When you're using different brands, which you definitely can, sometimes I've run into where there's a formula issue and stuff doesn't want to play together. So I like if I have more, like I use these two, the matte and this one together, if that makes sense. I'm trying to have a cohesive thought here. At 7, we have the Freddie palettes. If I had to put one above the other, it would probably be the green one above the red, just because I don't wear red a lot. Although, funny enough, I have used this one more than the green palette, if that makes any kind of sense. I will say, I think their shimmer formula in these is not the same as what they normally put out. I don't think they were probably experimenting, or that may have been done on purpose. I don't know. I do like some of the shimmers in here better. My favorite one in this one's Killer. It's got kind of a duochrome green, like yellow shift. And then in the red one, I like this Nightmare shade. It's a little bit on the pinky side, but they're not as reflective. We'll put it up there as like some of their other palettes. And I've heard other people say that, so it's not just me, but they're still good. There's nothing wrong with you. They're a million times better than the Kylie palette. 6, I put the Out of Luck from CXC Beauty. This is a combination palette, so the shades in here are from 2 pre-existing palettes, and it's just green and gray. I bought it for the packaging, and I've never tried anything from this brand. I don't know what this one is called. It like is on the it's very soft and flaky, and I keep having to smush it down. It wants to like fall out because it's such a soft shade. So I don't know what it's called, but, and there it is right there. And they do tell you when you go on their website, if you look at the combination palettes, what the shades are from. So if you have those palettes, then obviously, you know, you're going to get duplicate colors. But they do their best to at least like, hey, these are not like standalone shades. So I appreciate that. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I guess we're at number 5 technically. Would be the Beetlejuice palettes. Again, if I was going to rank one above the other, it'd probably be the Recently Deceased and then the Waiting Room, only because again I don't wear red, but I like these palettes. My husband bought these for me. That's the only reason they're probably ranked higher than the Glam Light ones, because there's some sentimental attachment to them. But there's those. My favorite one out of this one is Paranormal. It's a really dark kind of green. It looks black almost, but it's not. It is a dark green, so there is that. These are not as like reflective, shiny, some of the other, and it's just, I think because of when the palettes came out, formulas have changed, which is why I have some other melt ones ranked a little bit higher. And then Juno out of the Waiting Room is just, it's a silver. Let's poke it right there. So there's that. But again, I have glitter. I have lots of liquid glitter. It's easy to amp things up if I need to. So 1, 2, 3. Let's see, this would technically be 4. I have both of the, what am I? I'm starting to get tired. The Nightmare Before Christmas, the Halloween and the Christmas Town ones. These I got during the Sephora sale, and I actually haven't used these. I ranked these based on color story, and these, the shimmers in these are a little sparklier than what's in the Beetlejuice. It's the ones in the Beetlejuice is thicker. So in here, I'm gonna swatch Experiments. Where are we gonna put you? Very like toppery almost. And then I've been eyeballing this Gone Again out of the Halloween one. It's kind of a coppery orange. So there is that. This is a very soft, there we go. We got that built up a little bit. Very light shade, but those are definitely sparklier than what's in the Beetlejuice palettes. So there's those. The number 3, I have the Friday the 13th Camp Crystal Lake palette. I really like the color story on this. It's very, very pretty. One of my favorite shades is Can't Hide. And it's much shinier than what came out of the Freddie palette. So you can kind of see there is a difference. And then at number 2, actually, this surprised me, was the Chucky palette. I've actually reached for this quite a bit since I finally tried it. And if I'm going to do like a dark gray aesthetic, I'm much more likely to reach for this where I have a little bit of color than like the Ghostface palette. So I do grayscale looks, but I tend to use them out of this palette instead of that one, just for that reason. And we'll swatch, let's see, it's Showtime, which is a purple. It's a very pretty, we'll kind of go up here. It's got quite a bit of shine for being as dark as it is, but this is very, and if I'm very vampy, if I'm gonna do reds, I tend to go for these like vampy burgundy reds over like red, bright reds, like what's in the Nightmare on Elm Street, the one, whatever the red one's called. And then at number 1, I put these. They're not like the most exciting color story, but these are the Nomad. I have Haunted Europe and Ghost Town USA, and I included these because they're both like spooky, like ghost themes. They're not straight Halloween palettes. These were the brand's like Halloween palettes, but they don't scream Halloween, if that makes sense. And they're very user, like beginner friendly. Nomad has a really nice blendable, it's buildable, they're not overly pigmented. If I was going to rank one higher than the other, this would probably be 1 and this would be 2, but this is the palette I reach for the most, like for work, if I'm going to do makeup. Very, very pretty. And the shade that I use the most out of here is, which one is it? Tombstone? It's one of the lighter, like champagne-y colors. There it kind of is at the top. And then Haunted Europe has a little bit more color, so I like that you've got kind of pumpkin-y shades. You've got some green, some blue, some mauve colors. I like this cranberry shade called Bloody Mary. It's probably one that I've used the most, and then we'll put it right next. So they're on my knuckle. They're next to each other, but there are the 2 out of that one. And the other, there is Highgate Cemetery is another cool one. It's more of a toppery shade. We'll swatch one more. This again could be used as a highlighter. Anything can be used as a highlighter on my skin tone. It's kind of that like what ectoplasm-y shade. Very, very cool. So some fun shades in there. But yeah, those are all of my spooky theme palettes. Let me know what you guys thought. What did you think of my ranking? Were you surprised? I had a hard time ranking these. I really did. So that's why there was a couple that was like, I'm just going to put these in the same slot, because trying to separate beyond that is difficult, especially when you're talking about similar formulas. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you in another video. Bye, everybody.